So what's your current plan for releasing Remote Ribka? When are we going to actually see a price schedule, and how is it going to roll out?
The date that I have in mind is very early 2010. This is kind of what I have my eyes set on. I don't want to promise this, but this is the plan right now. Let me also say that we are going to do what's called a soft launch. This is something which is normal for these kinds of services. You know, these kind of services exist in every sector. You can't just go online with, all kinds of computers and let people start using it right away. They're going to overload the system. They're going to find all kinds of new weird problems, and you won't be able to meet to satisfy everybody. So at first there's going to be a very restricted audience of beta testers. They'll probably have free time at first. Then we'll take some kind of a lottery for customers who get to be in the first group of customers. They're going to have kind of a massively discounted rate, and they're going to use it and tell us more about the kind of problems they encounter, and then slowly we increase the size of the number of people who have access to this until at some point there's some kind of a general release. And so the general release will be as soon as possible, of course, but not before all the quality criteria have been met along the way. So that'll take however long it takes.
Without giving away any trade secrets or saying anything that would be premature, what can you tell us about Ribka 4? What has improved?
Almost everything has improved. I mean, I have over the past year, over the past 18 months since Ribka 3, I've done a ton of, made a ton of changes and made a ton of improvements. But I can't really say anything yet about Ribka 4 because I haven't sat down and decided what Ribka 4 is going to look like, what's going to be in there, what isn't. I just find it's better not to make any promises. So when I'm ready to make Ribka 4, then I will make her, and then I will say exactly what I did. And I'd really rather not make any promises right now.
All right, well, let me try to ask the same question here, but let me just narrow the answer, okay? My biggest pet peeve in Ribka 3 personally was your endgame evaluations. Are they going to be a lot better?
Yeah, endgame evaluations are better now. They're not... there's still more work to be done there. I mean, this is definitely the weakest area of computer chess engines in general compared to humans. And so there's still a lot of work. This is not there's no final solution yet to this problem. But they're better, yes.
Are all bugs that existed in Ribka 3 going to be fixed in Ribka 4?
Well, I'll do my best.
What are you doing differently for Ribka 4 to identify bugs ahead of time and correct them before the release?
Well, the main thing is I'm not going to have a business date or a date set for other reasons at which I will release Ribka 4. I'm going to release Ribka 4 when I feel like the quality is high enough. So this is a change from the past where I worked under a stricter deadline and had to cut more corners.
Here's a mind-boggling thought. We all remember the famous 1997 match between then world champion Garry Kasparov and IBM's Deep Blue. Is it reasonable to say that your latest version of Ribka 4 that is yet to be released on a late model quad-core computer would most likely defeat Deep Blue as it existed in 1997 in a match?
Well, that program in 1997 played only 6 games, so it's hard to know for sure, but I think probably Ribka 1 could beat that version of Deep Blue.
You're saying Ribka 1 could beat Deep Blue?
It's impossible to know for sure. The Deep Blue only played 6 games, which is kind of a tragedy. I mean, they developed this great machine and then they used it only 6 times. But based on what we saw in those 6 games, it was about the level of Kasparov. And let's say I think Fritz 10 beat Kramnik. Okay, it was close, but it beat Kramnik. So I think if you kind of line all those things up, yeah, I think I would bet money on that.
So if Ribka is that strong, how does a rival chess program such as a Shredder or a Fritz defeat Ribka in a real game? What goes wrong in a game?
Well, what we've learned from computer chess is that chess is incredibly complicated. And when you play 2900 level chess, that looks good until the 3000 player comes along and so on. So there's just a lot of little mistakes you can make where you just fail to search deeply enough or to evaluate something properly, and you make a couple of those and you lose. That's chess.
Here's a question that a lot of people have asked you, and maybe it's not really answerable. You said earlier that you have a ton of things to improve. How much improvement do you really think you can make? I mean, at some point, don't you think you might hit a wall and not be able to improve as much as you want?
Yeah, probably at some point there will be some kind of a wall. I don't really look that far ahead. For me, I don't have a goal, like I said before, of trying to solve chess or reach some kind of specific level. I just want to stay ahead of the other guys and then use that as a springboard into other things, like Go, like poker. And so, right now I would say that I have something like 12 to 18 months of things that really badly need to be done, and I'm almost embarrassed by Ripka as long as they're not done. I mean, like, I really want to do these things. And these are very concrete things I've already thought through and I just haven't had a chance to go and do. And beyond that, well, as far as I can tell right now, there might be a wall right beyond that. I mean, probably there isn't, and I'll think of some other things. But I would say right now I have this kind of 12 to 18 month focus of what really needs to be done, and then we'll see after that.
So let's say you have 50 things that you want to do. How do you decide what's top of the priority list? Is it based on what you think is going to have the most immediate impact, or is it something that is related to something else, or do you work thematically? How do you decide what sequence to fix things or change things?
I'm not 100% rational about this. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of a, I feel like doing this now because I just want to do it. I don't necessarily always work on the thing which is the highest leverage. But my to-do list seems to work like a stack. What happens is, I have some item and I'm working on it. And one of two things happens at that point. Either I finish that item, or in working on that item, I think of another item that I need to do first to properly do that first item. And then I bring it to the top of the stack, and that becomes the newest item. So right now, I've got a cascade of like 4 or 5 things, where I was working on one thing, and I'm now burrowed in like, five moves deep, into this of tangents to tangents. So that's kind of how I work. I would say I work it like a stack. The other thing I'll say here is I try to look at the long term. I try to do the things first, which are going to have the most effect over time. That sometimes it's more important to do something small first and then the big thing later, rather than the big thing first and the small thing later, because the small thing is actually naturally earlier.
Let's turn to the business side of computer chess. Vaz, about how many units of Ribka 3 have sold to date?
Well, I think that's proprietary information. I don't even have permission right now to discuss those kind of things. But it's a product. It sells. I'm pretty happy with it. It's a good way. It works.
All right. Well then, if you won't tell us how many you've sold, I mean, this leads to my next question. For every Ribka that has been bought at retail, how many would you guess have been pirated?
Yeah, I think quite a few. I mean, I don't have exact numbers for that. In a way, I don't really care. I mean, it's not my problem. It's not something I can do anything about. But
are there any ways to stop piracy and still have a commercial product?
Well, I think if there were, the people would be using them. So, all these things that people try, like CD checks and dongles and stuff like that, I mean, it's just a joke. It does nothing. It only inconveniences the people who pay compared to the people who don't pay. So really, no, there is no way. You get less piracy in companies because bosses don't want their employees to see them cheating. So that's a different sector. But for home entertainment software, there's really nothing you can do. Fortunately, there is a good sector, good chunk of people who are going to pay just because they feel it's the right thing to do, and so you can run a business on that.